So in the past few years, it seems there have been a lot of rumors going around that the word Allah is not the Arabic word for God. Um, However, I hope to demonstrate with this video that it actually is the Arabic word for Allah, for God. Sorry, and I hope to demonstrate that through Arabic itself, which is my second language, and I hope to debunk some propaganda that has been floating around, usually Quranic verses, which are used to say that this is the name of a moon god. So let's get started. Alright, so let's first take a look at why this matters. First, there's the factor of Islamophobia. A lot of people use the word Allah to say basically this is not my God, this is some other God, or this is a moon god. When actually you are using the same word that Christians and Jews and various other religions use when they're speaking Arabic. Which brings me to the next point of why it matters. You're alienating all these Arabic speakers of all faiths, most especially the Christians. Most people don't know this, but there's very high levels of very high populations of Christians in the Middle East, and very high populations of Christians who speak Arabic in America. For example, in Egypt we have the Copts. We don't have good statistics on how many there are, but most statistics range from 13% to 20% of the population of Egypt, which has them at about 15 million people. There's also Lebanon, which until very recently was actually majority Christian. Most people didn't know that either, but due to birth rates and immigration and things like that, today only about 39% of Lebanon is Christian, but that's still a very sizable population. So where did this rumor come from? Well, first it came from people looking at the phrase La ilaha illallah, which is probably the most famous Arabic phrase out there, and they see the translation, there is no God but God, and they say, oh, this has God in it twice, but the Arabic only has Allah once. But if you take a closer look, the word ilaha means a God, and the word Allah means the God. So basically, actually ilaha and Allah are actually the same word, but different grammatical constructs. It also came from people looking at translations of the Quran, which typically, not always, do not translate the word Allah. The reason for this is because according to Islam, the Quran came directly from God, as in God wrote the Quran, and it came in Arabic, which sort of gives Arabic sort of a holy language status, and that is, the Quran cannot be translated. If it is translated, it's just a translation. It's not actually the Quran, and because of this, people call God Allah. Not every Muslim does this, but a number of them do, and typically scholars who translate the Bible who are Muslim, or who translate the Quran who are Muslim, they typically don't translate the word out of veneration for the word Allah, which came from God. It's what God called himself. Now let's take a look at the actual word Allah. There are three main variations. The first is Allah, second al-ilah, and third Allah. Ilah means a God, as in one God of probably many, and in linguistics we call this an indefinite noun. An example sentence with this word would be Horus kan huwa ilah Masri. Horus was an Egyptian god. Al-Ilah means the God, which is sort of the same translation as Allah, but we'll get into that in a second. An example is Usalli al-Ilah alladhi uhibbu. I pray to the God that I love. Allah also means the God, but it is also and mainly a title. So this would be like if you were going up to your professor and you said, "Hey, professor," something like that, actually. And people use this to say that Allah is the name of God, as in sort of like Jehovah or something like that. That's not true. It's nothing more than a title, really. An example is Qudusun, 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 Anta Ya Allah, which is holy, holy, holy are you, O God, which is a phrase that Arab Christians actually say throughout Holy Week. So this is my first piece of evidence that Christians actually use the word Allah. I have more, actually, and here they are. And first we have John 3:16, which is very famous, which reads لِأَنَّهُ هَكَذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهَ الْعَالَمَ, which means because God so loved the world. And I also included the Greek here to demonstrate that Allah actually means the God, because in English we don't say the God, but in Greek they do, as in Arabic. And here we have sorry, my Greek's not very good, but Oftos gar igapisen otheos tonkosmon, sorry. Otheos actually means the God. We also have a very famous hymn, which Arab Christians sing just about every service, which goes Qudus Allah, Qudus al-Qawi, Qudus alladhi la yamut, irhamna, which means Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, have mercy on us. And again, I have the Greek Ayos Theos. So this is in very popular Christian use in the Middle East and among Arab Christians in America even. So let's take a look at some of the propaganda out there. We have a verse that says Qallu na'budu ilahaka wa ilaha aba'aka, which means they said we will worship your God, the God of your fathers. People look at this phrase and say wa ilah means the God, and therefore Allah cannot mean the God. Actually, wa means and, so this actually reads, they said we will worship your God and the God of your fathers, but in English that sounds like two gods, so that's why we don't use it in translation. As for ilah, why ilah is ilah instead of Allah, we'll get into that in the next slide. In the second verse we have wa ilahakum ilahun wahadun, la ilaha illa huwa ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and your God is one God, there is no God but He, the gracious and merciful. People look at this phrase or at this verse and they say there's three different words for God here and none of them are Allah. Again, they're actually all different grammatical constructs, and as you can see here, ilahakum translates as your God. Ilahun actually sort of translates as one God. Ilah means a God, as in any God. And actually notice at the beginning of this phrase, at the beginning of this verse, there is the word wa, and it lines up with the word and. That goes back to the earlier verse. In this verse we have فَقَالُوا هَذَا إِلَهُكُمْ وَإِلَهُ مُوسَى. So they said, this is your God and the God of Moses. People look at this verse and say it says the God, but it does not say Allah in the Arabic. Therefore Allah does not mean the God, and Ilahu can mean the God. Actually, this is the construction I was talking about earlier, called the idafa construction. Um, and here we have an example. Kitab means a book. Al-kitab means the book. If we wanted to say the student's book, we would say Kitab al-Talib, not al-Kitab al-Talib. Or if we wanted to say the book of Moses, we would say Kitab Musa, not al-Kitab Musa. And for that reason, we cannot say Allah Musa or Al-Ilah Musa. Both would actually mean the God Moses, or the God whose name is Moses, or Moses the God, which nobody believes Moses is a God, really. So yeah, in this case, Ilah or Ilahu Musa, Ilahu is the indefinite form of Allah, because it's in the idafa construction. In this verse we have حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. This means carcasses and blood and the flesh of swine are forbidden unto you, as well as whatever was offered unto anybody but God. The problem with this verse comes a lot of the time with people pointing to what a lot of translations say, such as this one, that on which any other name than that of Allah has been invoked. And they use this verse to say that this is the name of God, or this is the name of the God of Islam. But this verse actually doesn't even say anything about a name. It uses the word uhilla, which means offered or said a blessing over a certain livestock that was slaughtered and slaughtered for a god, basically. So it actually says nothing about a name. In addition, I want you to notice how the word Allah is formed in the sentence. It's Ilahi, another form, yet again, of this word. And I wanted to point this out to demonstrate that, yes, even the specific construct Allah has different constructs beneath it. And here's our last verse. قُلْ إِدْعُوا اللَّهَ أَوْ إِدْعُوا الرَّحْمَنَ أَيَّمَا تَدْعُوا فَلَهُ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى, which means, say, call upon God or Allah, or call upon the Gracious One. Whatever you call Him, these names are the most beautiful ones. People use the beginning of this verse to point out that Allah is God's name, and His only name. They ignore the rest of the verse, which basically says call Him whatever. And actually it puts the word Allah on the same level of the word Ar-Rahman, which means the gracious one. So it actually demonstrates, this verse actually demonstrates that the word Allah is a description, a title actually, and nothing more than that, really. Let's take a look at this last piece of propaganda. God says Allah is His name. Mostly I don't have a problem with this, except that it twists the definition of the word name. For example, in Islam there are 99 names of God, and Allah is actually the 100th. One of these names is Ar-Rahman, we saw earlier, the Gracious One. Basically, these are just descriptions that are put aside as things you can refer to God as. They're not like the name that God's mother gave to Him, for example, or His given name in any sort. In addition, in English we have in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Now, does this mean that the name of the Father is the Father, and the Son's is the Son, and the Holy Spirit's is the Holy Spirit? No. You could argue that the Father and the Son have names, okay, but it's hard to argue that the Holy Spirit has a name. And so why do we talk about a name in here? Because it doesn't mean a given name. That's why. It means what you call them. And I know this is sort of an absurd argument that I have to bring up, but it's really the same logic that people are using when they say that this God of Islam is not my God because they call it Allah and I call him God. It's really the same logic. In addition, people are twisting the Arabic word for name in addition to the English word. The Arabic word is ism, which means name, of course. It means noun, and it means word, and it means reputation, among other various meanings, actually. If I were to go to a Middle Eastern country and I didn't know the word for something in Arabic, I would say shu ismu, which means what is its name. That's not asking what is its given name. It's what's the word for this? What do I call it? And that brings us into the word that ism comes from, simma, which means to call something. So basically, when Islam talks about names, it's saying this is how you can call somebody. It's not saying necessarily that this is the name, this is the given name, this is the name that their mother or their family has given them. It's an entirely different thing. It's what you can call them. It's something you can entitle someone. Again, going back to the definition of Allah as a title. And I hope that I've debunked some rumors, and I hope I've convinced you that Allah simply does mean God. If I didn't, maybe there will be another movie coming, another video. But as for now, I will see you later. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it, actually. Have a good day.